back with my May wrap-up and reviews. Now, during the month of May, I read 4 books, 2 graphic novels, a book of poetry, and a novella. So I read 8 books altogether, but like I just described, I wouldn't really call all of them actual books. So the first book I read was Rachel's Folly by Monica Bruno, and I actually won this in a Goodreads First Reads giveaway. The author was really nice. It was supposed to be a signed copy, and she actually personalized it to me, and it was supposed to include a bookmark. She signed the bookmark too, and gave me a fun little note. So before I started reading this, I was kind of excited just because of all the cool book swag I got with it. But it's a psychological thriller. It's about a girl named Rachel and pretty much her best friend's fiance, Jack. And it's pretty dark. Again, it's a psychological thriller. Pretty much something happens and Rachel has to face a really dark part of herself, and at the same time trying to figure out what's going on with her best friend's fiance and why he doesn't really seem to have a past. And I can't really say much more about that without ruining a bunch of stuff in the book. This book, 5 out of 5 stars. But I really enjoyed this book. You know how most psychological thrillers, or just thrillers in general, there's huge plot holes, or the character does something and you just can't understand how that character did whatever they were doing. In this book, if a character does something, you can go back and go, oh yeah, I can see how they would do that. So I found this book to be really intriguing. I would definitely check it out. Rachel's Folly by Monica Bruno. And my bookmark keeps falling out. Next book that I read was actually on my May TBR, and that was The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I'm horrible with names, sorry. But I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is about a young girl who turns 19 and is to take her place on the throne of this country called Tearling. There are several people who want to kill her, so on her way to becoming queen, she kind of has to survive all these obstacles that get thrown in her way. And it's a really fun read. It reads like a fantasy, but it's kind of a dystopian. One of the characters in the book collects pennies, and they describe it as like a copper coin that has a bearded man on one side. So they don't even know what a penny is, but they have them. So it's really intriguing. I really love this book. Like I said, it reads like a fantasy, and book 2, The Invasion of the Tearling, comes out June 9th, and I really want to get it. So yeah, this is really good. The next book I read for the month of May was also a Goodreads First Reads giveaway that I won, and that is At Arm's Length by Isabella J. Mansfield. And this was the book of poetry that I read. I'm a little disappointed in this because it was described as being lyrical, so I thought it was actually like lyrical poetry, but it's written in free verse, which I do not like. I don't like free verse poetry. So I couldn't really get into it. It has a very deep theme to the poetry. It has a lot of anguish and it has a lot of heartbreak, but I couldn't really feel it because it was just written in free verse, and I just can't get into that kind of poetry. If it was actually written lyrically, which I thought that's what I was asking for, I might have enjoyed it a little more, but as it was written in free verse, and I couldn't really get into this. I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is actually, the first graphic novel is Twilight, the graphic novel, Volume 1 by Stephanie Meyer, and an art adaptation by Young Kim. And I really enjoyed this. I read the books, like around the time that the first movie came out. I read the books and I really enjoyed them, but there were grammatical errors and there were, like, things were described very similarly several times throughout the book, and it cuts all of that out in this because everything that's a descriptive is in the pictures. They don't use descriptive terms, and there's very little, you see there's like nothing on that page almost. So there's very little dialogue, so there's not very much room for grammatical errors, which is awesome. And it portrayed the story very well. It changed a few things in it, so it's not a strict, like, straight by the book adaptation, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Now, the 5th book I read, if you might have guessed, is Twilight, the graphic novel, Volume 2. And this one I really did enjoy, but I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because there is one really huge spelling error in it. And it's just one of those things, if the book has so little dialogue as what is in a graphic novel, you should be able to spell check. I'm sorry, but you should be able to spell check. So I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but I really enjoyed this. Again, it's not a strict by the book, straight by the book adaptation. It has changed a little bit, but it was really good, and I really want to read the New Moon versions of the graphic novel as well. The next book I read was also a Goodreads First Reads giveaway book that I won, and it is the novella that I read, and that is House of Harwood by Olivia Batker-Pritzker, I guess. But this is a novella that goes along with, I guess, a book series, but it can be read as a standalone, and I haven't read any of the series, so I just read it as a standalone, and I liked it. I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because it's only 71 pages, and it took me like 4 days to read it because it was just that slow of a read. There's so much information in here. There's so many characters that it follows, and it's just a lot of stuff to pack into just 71 pages. So I enjoyed it, but it was a really slow read for me. I think that it could have actually been drawn out a little bit and made into a full novel and not just a novella. And I think if that happened, it might have flowed a little better and it might have been a little faster read. The next book I read was Jacob's Ladder by Brian Keeney, and this is more of a middle grade, I think, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It follows a boy named Jacob, and he wakes up in a field and has no idea how he got there. And he spends the entire book trying to figure out where he is and what's going on and how to get back to where he believes he should be. I can't say too much about this without giving away the plot and just kind of ruining it. I will say that it does talk about where you go after death. So if you are extremely religious, you might not like this book very much. But like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it would have been more of a 5 out of 5 star book if it didn't feel like the ending was rushed. At least this one had an actual ending to it, whereas some of the previous middle grade books that I've read have not had an ending to it, or not like a strict this is the end ending to it. I really enjoyed this book, and if you're interested in finding out what happens to Jacob and how he got into a field without having any knowledge of getting there, then you might want to check it out. Now that was kind of vague, but it was a pretty good book. Now the last book I read during May was Chosen, book 3 of the House of Night series by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. I still don't like how they say poo and poop and just say shit. And there's cussing in this book, but the main character won't cuss. Like, she just won't, and she says like poo instead of shit. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but and I'm 31, so I think I should be able to cuss if I want to. And I don't have that many followers on my channel, so yeah. That's the big thing that I still don't like about these, is that the main character she tries to cuss, but she doesn't want to cuss, so she says stupid words. I hate that. I just hate it. If you're gonna cuss, cuss. Don't say, I don't know, just don't skirt around the cuss words. If you want to cuss, just cuss. And if you don't want to cuss, just don't say anything that sounds like it might be a cuss word or might be replacing a cuss word. So I only gave this 4 out of 5 stars, but I'm still enjoying the series, so I'm going to continue on with it. All the headache from the wording and all. That's all the books that I read in May, and that's all I have for this video, so I'll see you next time.